Dad, when was the last time that you got your physical? And I said, I don't know. It's been years. So he told me to get one. And as I look around, New Life is getting both younger and older at the same time. We are getting younger because our college house church members are faithfully reaching out to their VIPs and on their campuses, and the number of our young college students are growing. And by the way, we have a college retreat coming up, February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And I trust that all of you will sign up because it's going to be great. However, we are also getting older because now we have a good number of members who used to be in their 20s and 30s 20 years ago, in their 40s, and even in their 50s right now. So our church is getting younger and older at the same time. So as years go by, I will hear more members of New Life, especially those who are not so young, talking about their physical condition, how that is deteriorating, drugs that they are taking, food that they are avoiding, and the kind of exercise that they are doing to maintain their health. And yes, as your caring pastor, I would highly recommend that you eat right and that you exercise to take care of your body. By the way, if there's anybody who wants to join me hiking up a half dome in the month of May, please come and see me. There are 5 men that are signed up to go, and we may not be able to make it back to Houston. There goes my sabbatical. Now, as much as our physical health is important, our spiritual health is much more important. Physical health impacts and affects our life here on this earth at most about 90 years. However, spiritual health impacts and affects our life for eternity. And how long is eternity? Eternity is really, really long. It never ends. So how is your spiritual condition these days? When was the last time that you got your, not physical, but spiritual? And if you were to get one right now, how do you think the result will come out? In today's passage, we see Jesus addressing and talking about 2 different groups of people. One group is Matthew and his sinner of friends, and tax collectors and sinner friends who are most likely prostitutes and the thieves during that time. The other group is the Pharisees and the religious people. Both groups of people were spiritually sick and needed help from the great physician. But only one group ended up getting healed, and the other group did not get healed. They just remained sick. Who were these people? What were they like? What was the differences between these two groups? And which group of people do you think Jesus enjoys spending time with? So let's talk about these 2 different groups of people. One, spiritually sick people who remained sick. Unfortunate people, tragic people. Well, who are they and what were they like? Number one, they don't know. This is the most important thing right here. They don't know they are sick and need help. They don't know. Verse 12 says this, on hearing this, Jesus said, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. By looking at this passage, you know whom Jesus was referring to when he used the word sick. Who are these people that Jesus is referring to as sick people in this passage? It is crystal clear. He went to Matthew. He asked Matthew to come and follow him. And then Matthew followed, and Matthew invited all his friends, tax collectors and the sinners, the prostitutes and the thieves. And it's crystal clear that these are the sick people that Jesus is referring to. How about when he used the word healthy? Who do you think he was referring to? Healthy people. Do you think he was referring to these Pharisees, religious people, holy people? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He was not referring to these Pharisees as healthy people. This means, according to Jesus Christ, there is no one in this world who is healthy spiritually. All are sick. All are unhealthy. And all are in need of spiritual healing. That's what Jesus is saying right here. But these Pharisees thought that they were healthy spiritually, and therefore they firmly believed that they didn't need any healing or help. But by thinking that they were healthy, or by not knowing that they were sick, they were in a more dangerous place than those tax collectors and sinners who knew that they were sick and were in need of help from the great physician. According to Jesus, these people were extremely sick and unhealthy spiritually. People who do not know that they are sick. The most dangerous people. Number 2, they classify and categorize people into haves and have-nots, educated and uneducated, holy and unholy, acceptable and unacceptable. Verse 11, when the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? So by reading this verse, you know that these guys named and labeled as Pharisees were categorizing people at least in three different groups of people. They were them, they were Jesus and his disciples, and the tax collectors. But simply they were basically dividing human beings into two groups of people. The first group, in this verse 3, the first group is them. They are the kings, and they are the queens of the society. They are the nobles. They are at the top. And then there are these disciples or people of the middle class who may be better than those commoners, but definitely lower than themselves. These Pharisees may have thought of this group as people, these disciples, as what? There's a term that you guys use, bourgeois, right? Bourgeoisie. Bourgeois, the wannabes. Bourgeois, the wannabes, right? They want to be, right? Like rich people, noble people. They're not, right? And there are those people who are at the bottom of the bottom, the proletariats or the untouchables. And I studied labor history, so I know something about this. Bourgeoisie and the proletariat and all these things. As you can see, these Pharisees classified and categorized people into haves and have-nots, educated and uneducated, holy and unholy, religious and irreligious, acceptable and unacceptable. Sure, Jesus classified and categorized people too into different groups of people, but he used the words and terms like obedient and disobedient, humble and arrogant, sheep and goats, and faithful and unfaithful. Now, what did Jesus use to classify and categorize people? He didn't use what the Pharisees used to classify people. The Pharisees used the external things, the appearance of men, to classify people. However, Jesus used the sincerity of people's hearts to classify and categorize people. And he had the right to do so because he is the Lord of the universe. He knew everything that was taking place in people's hearts. He knew. To the Pharisees, the externals were more important than the internal. How people appeared to other people was more important than how they appeared and stood before God. They totally forgot that God looks at the heart condition and not the outward appearance of man. New life, what do you look for in people? What do you look for in people? Do you guys categorize and classify people into certain groups? If so, then what is the criteria that you're using to do this? If you use people's education, wealth, profession, and race, and the color of their skin, then you are no better than these Pharisees, and you are a spiritually sick person. We don't do this in this church. We don't categorize people into who has how much money, who's doing what kind of job. We don't do that in this church. One of the things I love about New Life is that this church is very diverse. When it comes to racial diversity, we still have ways to go because as you can see, it's very Asian right here. But who knows, as years go by, and after I retire in just a few years, maybe this will change very drastically. I don't know. But besides this thing, this church is very, very diverse. We have rich and poor, educated and uneducated, white collar and the blue collar people, Republicans and Democrats, and people who used to be Republicans and not anymore. And those who don't have certain sexual tendencies, and certain people who do. And those who have the experience of committing crime and serving time in prison, and those who put these people in prison. We have all kinds of people in this church. And I love this diversity, and I think Jesus will be very pleased with the direction that New Life is headed to. This is one of the many things that we are doing well in this church. So New Life, let's not classify or categorize people into different groups using these external and superficial qualities that reveal nothing about the sincerity of people's hearts. If we must classify and categorize people into different groups, let's use what Jesus used, the condition of people's hearts and attitude. And there is a way to detect people's condition. There is a way to detect people's heart attitude. One of the things that I use, I'm just going to tell you, one of the things that I use to gauge and to actually understand people's heart condition is, how do these people respond and react when other people are doing really well? Do we really do this? I'm really happy for you. Or do they go away and say that, why not me? complain and blame. That's one of the things that I use. That's why when you get benched from whatever the things that you do, how you do as a bench player will reveal volume about your heart condition. Is it about you or is it about God and the well-being of the community? There are different things that you can use to detect people's heart condition. I got my own set. Number 3, they look down on certain people because they think they are superior to them. Verse 11, when the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? The problem with these Pharisees is that they could not understand how Jesus was eating with these tax collectors, prostitutes, and the thieves. According to their moral and the religious standards, no one should be eating with these people because eating is an intimate thing and a sign of deep fellowship, and you should not fellowship with these people who are labeled as dirty and unclean. And if you take your spirituality seriously, you're not supposed to hang around with these people. That's the mindset that they had. This is where they went wrong. They thought they were better than and morally superior to these tax collectors and sinners. And therefore, they asked the question, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? But Jesus' rebuttal question to them is, why don't you eat with tax collectors and sinners? What stops you from eating and fellowshipping with these people? You don't eat and you don't fellowship with these people because you think you are better than and are superior to these people, isn't it? That's his rebuttal question. Your life, do we look down on people because they are less educated than we are, poorer than we are, working in blue-collar industry instead of in the white-collar industry, know about the Bible less than we do, or because of the color of their skin? Do we do this type of things? If we do, then we are spiritually sick people. Lastly, they associate with only those who will make them look respectable. They associate with only those people who will make them look respectable. Not only did these Pharisees look down on these people whom they thought were inferior to them, they only hung out with those people who would make them look good. Even though these Pharisees said that they believed in God, they loved God's word, and they lived their lives according to God's will, they were just so far away from knowing God and doing God's will. Therefore, their life was not about God, but it was all about themselves. They will do whatever it takes to make themselves look good, and as long as they come out looking good, then they will do no matter what God says about what they are doing. In your life, who do you hang out with? And who do you spend time with on a regular basis? Do you hang out and spend time with those people who will make you look good in the eyes of people? Or do you eat and hang out with those people who may cause other people to wonder and be suspicious of your action? If you see me hanging out with, I don't know, tattoo artists, prostitutes, if you see me hanging out with these people, what would you think of me? What is Pastor? What are you doing here? But that's exactly what Jesus did. He hung out with tax collectors, prostitutes, and the sinners of during this time. If we only hang out with the people who are just like us and refuse to spend time with those who may make us look bad or weird in the eyes of people, then we are spiritually sick people, according to Jesus. Now, let's talk about people, spiritually sick people, who ended up getting healed. What was their secret? Number one, they know and admit that they are sick. They know and they admit that they are sick. Verse 9, as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. Every single day, Matthew got up and went to work just like you and I do. I got up every single day and come to work. You do too. You go to school. Poor song. You go to school every day, right? Without getting late. Yes. So how many of you enjoy going to work? Raise your hand. If you get up in the morning and says, man, it's a privilege to go to work. Raise your hand. Well, not that many of you. How many of you just don't like going to work? How many of you are unemployed? No, I'm just kidding. For the most part, I enjoy going to work, right? Some do and some don't. Do you think Matthew enjoyed going to work or not? Let me ask you a question. Do you think Matthew enjoyed going to work every single day, going to the tax collector's booth? The answer is no. He didn't enjoy going to work. He didn't. We don't know why he became a tax collector during Jesus' time. In today's world, at least in this country, there is nothing wrong with working for IRS, right? It's a good, secure job. There is security in these government jobs, except at times like this when there is a government shutdown, right? But during Jesus' time, there was everything wrong with being a tax collector. There's nothing wrong, with working for IRS, but there was everything wrong, working for the government, as a tax collector. No one wanted to be a tax collector because being a tax collector was synonymous or equivalent to being a traitor. Traitor. Only those who are willing to betray their own nation worked as tax collectors during this time. During the time of Jesus Christ, the Jews were under the influence and the power and control of the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire collected taxes from those nations that they conquered for very obvious reasons. Somebody had the money, right, to build the roads, build the canals, build the aqueducts, and the military personnel for the purpose of expanding and strengthening the Roman Empire power. And the Romans had conquered nations to pay for these taxes. Therefore, paying taxes to the Roman government was a sign of subjugation and weakness. Every conquered nation, including Israel, hated paying taxes to the Roman government. But what's worse was that the Roman government hired Jews to collect the taxes from their own fellow Jews. If people were in their right mind, they would not work for their enemy nation that persecuted them so severely. If this nation conquered you, and this nation is abusing you and persecuting you, taking advantage of you, would you raise your hand and say that, let me volunteer to work for you? Nobody will do that in their right mind. If people were in their right mind, they would not work for their enemy nation that persecuted them so severely. However, there was some who actually did it. Some people actually did it. Do you know why they did it? The incentives and the benefits of working for the enemy nation were just too good to pass up for these people. And what were the benefits? And what were the incentives of working for this enemy nation? What do you think it is? It's called M-O-N-E-Y, money. Money. What else is new, guys? What else is new? We see people doing unthinkable things because they are pursuing after money. We see that all around. They shouldn't be doing that, but they are doing some weird and strange thing that doesn't make any sense. And then after that, you find out, the money is involved. So these guys actually work for the enemy nation because of the money. Matthew got hooked and tempted by this money as well. We don't know his family situation at all. The Bible does not talk about that. Perhaps he was extremely poor and he did not have any life skills, job skills that he can use to work and make money to provide for his own family. We don't know. So this job may have been the only thing they can do. I don't know how to do anything, but at least I can sit at the tax collector's booth and just collect money from people. That I could do. Maybe that was the situation. Or perhaps he wasn't struggling financially at all, but the temptation of getting rich quickly by working for the Roman government was just too powerful and strong that he couldn't resist. We don't know. But at the same time, when he met Jesus Christ, he did not really enjoy working as a tax collector. Money might have been good. It might have been, he might have been able to provide things for his family plentifully by working as a tax collector. But he came to realize that the life was not just about money. He knew that he was hated, he was despised by people that he loved because of his profession. He sold his soul to make money. He sold his soul to make money. And he did not want to live that life anymore. He wanted his life to be much better than and more meaningful than how he was living at that particular moment. So every day he struggled, and every day he dreaded going to work. And he came to a point where he didn't care about making money anymore. He was spiritually sick. He was dying inside, and he knew that. And that's what was amazing about Matthew. This is the number one reason why Matthew got healed. Without this, without coming to the realization, just like Colin said, without coming to the realization that I'm a broken man, there's no hope for us. If we don't know that we are sick, or rather, if we think we are healthy when we are desperately sick, that is the most dangerous place to be in. This mindset and perspective that I'm all right, I'm decently healthy, spiritually speaking, will slowly but surely kill us. Are there any Matthews in this place? Friends, what good is it to have money when everyone around you hates you and despises you? At first, Matthew thought that the money would give him the pleasure and satisfaction that he was looking for in this world. And it must have been okay at first. With the money that he extorted from people, he bought a very nice, expensive house or two, purchased the fast-driving sports cars, decorated his house, with this expensive, custom-made furniture, went on vacation to Hawaii for beach, and Banff for skiing in the winter with his lovely Mrs. Matthew. And finally, he purchased the boat that all men of new life want to have. But after a little while, he realized that all this got very old. But he was a wise man because he came to his senses that all this stuff of the world cannot give him the meaning and purpose that he was looking for. Unfortunately, some men, some women, some people never come to their senses in realizing this. Therefore, they spend their entire life looking for and pursuing after these stuff of the world, and then they die. What a waste of life. What a waste of life. Matthew was miserable, and he knew it. He admitted it, and he looked for help. He was sick, but there was hope for him because he knew that he was sick. Do we know that we are spiritually sick? If we don't, then we will never get healed because we will not look for and receive help that will help us to be healed. We must look at and examine all aspects of our lives, in the aspect of our relationship, how we use money, how we use your time, what kind of leisure activities that you develop, the thinking that you have about your future in retirement. You got to examine all these things and then ask yourself if you are doing well or not. If we are not doing well, then we must honestly acknowledge it and humbly admit that we have a problem. People who believe that they are healthy when they are actually sick are unhealthy people. People who believe that they are sick when they are sick are healthy people. It is only those people who have the hope of getting healed by Jesus Christ, the great physician. Number two, they receive the help humbly when it is offered. They receive the help when it is offered. Verse 9b says this, "Follow me," Jesus told them. And Matthew got up, and what did he do? Followed him. He got up and followed him. The fact that Matthew gave up everything, got up, and immediately followed Jesus Christ shows that he was looking for help. He was miserable going to the tax collector's office, a booth, and collecting money and working in that way. He was getting sick and tired of that. He struggled to go to work. So when the offer, the invitation was given, he immediately got up and followed Jesus Christ. What do you do with the help that comes on your way? Do you even recognize? Do you even realize the help that comes from God when it comes to you? Do you realize that? Do you have spiritual eyes to see this? Spiritually sick people who get healed are the ones who receive the help humbly, joyfully, and immediately when the help is offered to them. That's what Matthew did. Number three, they are thankful. Thankful. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and the sinners came and ate with him. Matthew threw a big Thanksgiving dinner for Jesus and his disciples because he was thankful for what took place in his life. And there are people who will not come inside the church building. I'm talking about these days right here. There are people in our life who will not come inside the church building to be helped because they are given the impression by those holy and religious Christians that these people are too unholy to enter into a church building. You guys, you should not come. You got to get your act together before you enter into this church building. Whether you believe it or not, that's the reality out there. There are people out there who say that, I cannot go to church because church is supposed to be a holy place, and when I show up, I'll get rejected by these people. So they don't come inside. Therefore, this is another reason why we, New Life, must go to them instead of asking them to come to church, a building. And the best place that we can take these people to show the love of Jesus Christ is what? Is our house church. That we meet regularly at our houses where there's food, there's laughter, there's tears, there's sharing, love, acceptance, and accountability. These tax collectors and sinners who were friends with Matthew never went inside the synagogue because they were labeled as unclean people by these religious Jews. They were Jewish people. They were supposed to go to synagogue, but they were not allowed. It's not like they didn't want to go inside the synagogue. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't because of these religious people blocking them. But what did Jesus do? Because they couldn't go, they weren't allowed to come to this place. Jesus came to Matthew. Jesus came to his friends who were all sinners. This probably was the very first time that a clean, respectable Jew approached these people and offered to have a meal and a fellowship with them. Nobody reached out to these people. And can you see how thankful Matthew and all his sinner friends must have been? Nothing of this sort happened in his life, and it was happening for the very first time. And he couldn't contain his joyful, thanksgiving heart. Therefore, Matthew was grateful to Jesus, and he is forever grateful. And even as we are worshiping right now, he is at the side of Jesus Christ, thanking Jesus Christ. Forever grateful. How grateful are you to Jesus? If I were to test your gratitude quotient, not intelligent quotient, but gratitude quotient, what do you think your score will be? Your level of gratitude will reveal whether or not you are spiritually healthy. People complain, grumble, whine. It's a sign that they are unhealthy. But people are thankful, for these mundane things that we experience and have in our life. They are the healthy people. You get up in the morning and then you realize that you're breathing. Thank you, I'm still alive. And then around the inside our house is kind of cold. And then, you get up and it's kind of cold. And it's, thank you for the coolness of the morning. Right? And I go out and I see 3 nice cars parked on my driveway. Thank you for the cars that I have. And today was a beautiful day. And I always park my car on the Tammy Renee in the school parking lot so that you guys can actually park. Those of you kind of come at like 8:59. You need a parking space to park and run, But as I was walking from a school and looking at the church building, it was beautiful. So I took a picture and I posted it on Facebook. A beautiful day of worship, something like that. Being grateful, being thankful, guys, is a serious business. You know why God was upset with the Israelites? Because they grumbled. Grumble, right? Whine. He couldn't stand these people. After God took out the nation of Israel from the land of Egypt and to set them free from the bondage of slavery, they are grumbling. Oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this, I don't have that. God hated these people. Right? Why? Haven't I done enough for you? Why can't you look at all these blessings that I have bestowed upon you and only think about those things that you don't have? I will give them to you if you just patiently wait upon me. Why do you grumble? So how do we develop this grateful heart and attitude? Look at all the blessings that God has already given you, starting from your salvation. And I think Josh says just amazing things. Romans chapter 3, verse 23. John 3:16. Romans 6:23. And helped us to focus on the cross. When in doubt of God's love, look at the cross. If God gave you his son, what will he withhold from you? Nothing. So start, going down the list, starting from your salvation. And then express your gratitude to God by verbalizing what you are thankful to him for one by one. And I was very thankful that I got invited to come to Rice University's Korean Culture Night. That was my first time going there. Bunch of our New Life students were actually on the stage performing. And I didn't know that these people had that kind of skills and talent. That's amazing. And it was a very relaxed, and a peaceful evening. I usually don't do that on Saturday night. But I heard about that on Friday when I went to Somaliland House Church, and they told me, yes, Esther Lim is the president of KSA. Esther Lim, oh my goodness, that quiet girl is a president of the KSA? No, And she's putting this thing on. So I just wanted to go and check it out. It was really good. Right? So thank God for all these things that happened. Yesterday's wedding that I got to officiate. They were going to go to the court and get married. I said, no. Let's have you repent first. Are you truly sorry for what you have done? Yes, I am. Then let's have this wedding. Not at the court, but small wedding. And they followed through my direction. Wedding, marriage is the very first institution that God created. You don't get married in the court, guys. You get married in the presence of God, in the presence of all these people who serve as witnesses as you make this marriage covenant with one another. And I was thanking God for all these things that happen. Spiritually sick people who get healed are the ones who demonstrate gratitude in their life. And number 4, they have joy. Verse 10, while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. If you put thankfulness and dinner together, what do you get? Thankfulness and dinner. What do you get? Thanksgiving dinner. That's what you get. Thanksgiving dinner is a place of joy. I know that some of you guys, as you're having Thanksgiving dinner, you probably have one of the worst dinner times with your family. Things are flying all over the place, and you storm out the door and say, I hate you, right? And not much of Thanksgiving going on there. However, it is supposed to be the most thankful time of the year, right? Thanksgiving dinner. Matthew had invited all his sinner friends, and they were having a joyful dinner and conversation with Jesus Christ and his disciples. And there were probably, Nathan Chen, you can close your ears. You can close your ears. There were probably some glasses of wine being passed around, and the good time was being had by all. Okay, now you can open your ears. A thankful heart always leads to joy. Gratitude and joy are inseparable. When you are grateful, you experience joy. And when you are joyful, it is because you have gratitude in your heart. Spiritually sick people who get healed by Jesus Christ are the ones who experience and manifest joy in their life. Number 5, they are hospitable. Hospitable. Verse 10, while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. Matthew was very hospitable. He used his home and resources to practice hospitality for those people who needed Jesus Christ. So in your life, what do you use your home and your resources for? What do you use your resources for? Do you use them to practice active hospitality? How willingly and joyfully do you open up your homes to host house church meetings and invite other people to come in so that they can experience the love of Jesus Christ through your generous and active hospitality? Spiritually sick people who get healed are the ones who practice active hospitality. And number 6, they are generous. Generous. Verse 10, while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many, right? The emphasis is on many. Many tax collectors and sinners came. Matthew did not just invite Jesus and his 12 disciples to dinner to celebrate his salvation. He invited many tax collectors and sinners over to his house so that they can eat and fellowship with Jesus Christ. He immediately knew that if he invites his sinner friends, tax collectors, prostitutes, thieves, those with a very color, a past, if he knew deep in his heart that if he brings these people in the presence of Jesus Christ and allow Christ to interact with these people, he knew that good things would happen to them, just like it happened to him. So he didn't know how it was going to happen. He didn't have a magic formula. But there is this Jesus who came to me and will show me how to live my life. If I put my own friends that I care about, I spend time with, if they are in the presence of Jesus Christ, good things will happen. So he did it. So he practiced not just the active but generous hospitality. I need to work on this. It's like, I didn't have a concept of tipping people, before I came to this church. I just gave like 10 to 12%, and all my friends actually did it. But then I realized it's minimum 15%. And after that, you can go up to 18 and 20. And I'm raising it up to 18% and sometimes 20%. Christians those of you are born with this very generous heart, you probably don't have to struggle too much in this area. But if you're very frugal to a point where you struggle, it's a spiritual discipline that you have to practice. You got to start minimum of 15% because that's what this society, agreed upon, right? And then after that, you increase that to higher and higher percentage. Let me just pause right here and talk about the importance of food in your house church. Show me a house church. Show me a house church that is vibrant and growing, and I will show you a house church that is very generous with food. What am I saying? Generous food, good, generous food with the vibrancy of your house church go hand in hand. Our youth ministry these days is just joy for me to behold. Pastor Jabez and Jamie have the gift of service and the spirit of generosity. And I see that through the pictures that he posts on Facebook, that crazy like a video, and then, like he's eating noodle like this and putting a bunch of pictures on Facebook. Now I see that there's a lot of fun going on. And Jamie makes for youth, village leaders, and high school helpers some amazingly awesome food in lots of quantity. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of good food. And people gather together where there is food, and they experience a vibrant life. But people dry up where there is no food. If you're just eating pizza, a slice of pizza, and then you don't usually eat the crust, but you have to eat crust because there's not enough pizza, and you're doing this, do you think you can have a very good sharing time? You can't. You can't. However, listen to this very carefully. Generous amount of food does not necessarily guarantee a healthy house church. Even with lots of good, fancy food, house church may not become healthy and vibrant. It can possibly turn into a social gathering where this rich bourgeoisie, where these rich foodies eat fancy and expensive food, and they talk about some superficial stuff like cars, handbags, Louis Vuitton, houses, money, vacations, and retirement. I've seen that in this church. A lot of food, but superficiality all over the house church. But without generosity, without generous amount of food, house church will not and cannot be healthy and vibrant. In fact, generosity is one of the signs that indicate that we know what God's grace is, because God's grace is generous, extravagantly generous. Someone may have been born with a tendency to be generous. Like I said, if it's you, then being generous is very easy for you. But some of you may have been born with as a tight-fisted person. If this is you, and that if you are saved by God's grace, then you must practice very hard to be generous, because we cannot reflect and reveal the grace of God to the watching world if we are not generous. So spiritually sick people who get healed are the ones who are generous. I got a couple more. Number 7, they are free. Free. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with Jesus. They ate with Jesus. Matthew and his sinner friends weren't holy people. They were considered as unclean by these Pharisees, and therefore they weren't allowed to go inside the synagogue. They weren't allowed to fellowship freely with these people who are labeled as clean people. So they were very self-conscious people because of the profession that they were in and the life they chose to live in the first century AD. They were very self-conscious. They was always looking back, like, hey, are there clean people who will judge me, right? They weren't free. But after they met Jesus, they became very free. They were in the presence of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the King of Kings. But they were laughing, eating, drinking, conversing, and having a great time. Jesus caused them to be this way. Jesus helped them to be this way, but they also embraced the freedom that is in Jesus Christ. So this is what the spiritually sick people who get healed looks like. How free are you? I'm not talking about being free to sin. Some people think that freedom is like just doing whatever you want to do. So you just go and do all kinds of stuff that are very destructive. That's not the freedom that I'm talking about. I'm talking about being free and not being so self-conscious. If you are rigid and self-conscious, you may still be spiritually sick. Being relaxed, being free is one of the signs that we are healed and made healthy. Lastly, they consider those things important that God considers important. That God considers important. Verse 13 says this, but go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. When Jesus said the word sacrifice here in this verse, he was referring to the act of worship and sacrifice that Jewish people did in the temple, the animal sacrifice. And Jesus is saying that I desire mercy, not the act of worship that you do in the temple. The act of worship is not unimportant. The act of worship is not unimportant. It is important. But what's more important than that is our heart. It is our heart, guys. Therefore, the most fundamental question that we must ask our own selves when it comes to this worship is, what kind of heart and attitude am I bringing to this place of worship? Heart is the most important thing. To God, the act of worship without heart is despicable. That's what God says. It's despicable. All the sacrifice that you're bringing, the goats and the lambs and a bull, they are despicable. I'm not happy. I'm not pleased with these animal sacrifices because I desire your heart. But if we approach God in worship with that sweet and humble heart and spirit, he gets extremely thrilled and happy. Furthermore, Jesus spells out for us what his life mission was. He said, I came not to what? Says what? He said, I've come not to call the righteous, but sinners. This is the most important thing for Jesus Christ. Saving the lost and making these people the disciples was his life mission. This means we too must consider this to be the most important thing in our life. One of the main reasons why New Life is healthy is because we know what the most important thing that church ought to be committed to, and that we are doing our best to fulfill that. Spiritually sick people who get healed are the ones who consider those things important that God considers important. And God considers our heart that we bring to the place of worship more importantly than the act of worship itself. And God loves people. He wants all men, all women to be saved. So we too must be committed to reaching out to our VIPs. So these are some of the things that healthy people are like and unhealthy people. Healthy people are like and healthy people do. My question to you this morning is, are you healthy or unhealthy? If you're to get your spiritual, just like you get your annual physical, what do you think will come out? What kind of results will you see? Will there be high spiritual cholesterol? Will there be high spiritual blood pressure? Will there be spiritual cancer in your life? Or will the result come out very clean, very healthy? As far as Jesus is concerned, we are all unhealthy. We are all sick. But the difference between the tax collectors and the Pharisees is that the former knew that they were sick and wanted to get better and humbly received the help when the help was offered to them. While the latter thought that they were healthy and didn't think they needed any help from the great physician. So which group are you? Today when you go home, I want you to review the points that I gave you in this sermon. 4 in regards to unhealthy people. 8 in regards to healthy people. Go down the list and examine yourself in the presence of God. God, is this me? Does this describe me? Take the test. And if it comes out really good, praise God. Press on by doing whatever you are doing right now. But if the test does not come out so good, then work on those points where there's lack so that you will be healthy. The most important thing is that God reached out to me, a person like me. I'm a Matthew. And then you guys are Matthews too. I'm a Matthew. And Jesus reached out to me. And a sick person, unrighteous person, unholy person, God-hating person, he reached out to me. And by his grace, he melted my heart. And I responded, Jesus, thank you. I want you to come into my heart, be my Lord and be my Savior. I did it when I was 18. There were ups and downs in my life. And then when I was in college for a couple of years, I struggled in my faith. But other than that, it's been a constant journey that is filled with ups and downs, but I know where I'm headed. I'm going towards Jesus. I'm running towards Jesus Christ. The most important thing is to realize that, yes, we are unhealthy. We are sick people, that the great physician Jesus Christ came to heal and save. Knowing that is the most important thing. Let's pray.